So let's kind of go back to my example of fear of sleeping alone in the dark. Okay, so when we have something we're afraid of, we tend to have a worst case scenario that we visualize in our minds. Whether it's happened before or never happened, a lot of times it's something that actually hasn't happened. We have this thing that we picture in our minds that's the worst case scenario, and it replays in our mind, and that's where a lot of our anxiety or fear comes from. So I'm using this example because I've actually seen it quite a bit. And, for any anxiety, specific anxiety or phobia, there's tons of people who can relate. So please know that you are not alone, okay? So one that I've seen with a lot of clients is that fear of sleeping alone, fear of sleeping in the dark, right? So let's imagine that's my fear. Perhaps when you have that fear, you could be thinking, okay, if I sleep alone in the dark, someone may kidnap me. There could be a home invasion. There could be a ghost or a spirit or alien or something in my room, some sort of entity in my room. With kids, you'll hear them say there's a monster in the room, right? And that could be that imagined worst case scenario. Now, let's say I have lots of different things that I do to help me feel more secure in this situation. For a lot of anxieties or fears we have, over time, like if we've had this fear for a long time, we tend to put different things in place that help us cope, right? So we're coping rather than overcoming. So let's say in this situation, the way that you've coped was sleeping with your parents or sleeping with a sibling, and that's no longer an option. Okay, so let's say some of the other things you do to cope is you make sure the closet door is closed, your bathroom door is closed, your windows are closed, your blinds or curtains are closed, right? Let's say your bedroom door is open. I think for a lot of people, they like to have the door open. Let's say your lights are on, or let's say you have a noise machine or the TV needs to be on. Your blanket needs to be up to your neck, right? Or somehow the blanket needs to be on you. So these are different things that you do to help yourself feel more secure in this situation, right? Now, what we want to see if we can do is basically examine the thoughts. So let's start with that worst case scenario that there could be an entity in the room. Okay. So what we want to look at first is, what is the probability that this will occur? Has it happened in the past? Likely not, right? So let's say that it's never happened before. Do you know anyone that it's happened to? Like, have you heard a lot of news stories, right? No, I haven't heard a lot of news stories, or I haven't heard any at all. So let's say the probability is fairly low, right? Now let's go to what is the severity of impact should the worst case scenario happen? Now, if something was in the room, what's the worst thing it can do to me? Well, it could scare me. Okay, so it scares you. How much is that going to affect you? Now, this can vary for each person. Maybe it's actually going to affect me, like pretty significantly. It's going to reinforce my fear. Like, it's just really scary. It's going to really scare me. So emotionally, maybe I'm still kind of determining if it's a high impact or medium impact. Okay. So let's think about now that fear. Is it going to lead to like death, for instance? No, it's not. Okay, let's think about the emotional impact. Will I still be scared in a week? Okay, maybe I will. Will I still be scared in a month? Possibly. Will I still be scared in a year? So let's say in a span of a year, it doesn't happen again. Maybe I'll still be scared, but it won't be as scary as it was maybe the first week, for instance, right? Okay, so maybe I've decided that this is a medium to high severity of impact, or maybe it's low, depending on what your anxiety situation is. Okay, so in this particular example, maybe I've decided it's low probability, medium to high severity. In terms of relevance, like over a span of time, I'm gonna say medium, right? Okay, so now, even though I've done that and I feel like it's a low probability, I'm still really scared. Let's imagine I'm still really scared. Okay, so if the worst case scenario were to happen, what would I do about it? Because I mean, for a lot of people, if they're scared of something, a lot of times they'll say it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. But they're still very scared. So clearly they haven't internalized it, right? So that's why it's really important to actually go through this step-by-step dispute process in your mind to really examine the belief you have. So if the worst case scenario were to happen, so rather than brushing it off saying it's not going to happen, let's imagine it does. What can you do if you wake up and there's an entity in your room? Well, if I don't live alone, I can call for help. I can scream for my parents and they'll come running right over, or my housemates, my partner, or whoever's in the house will come running right over and help me. Will that that entity from continuing to scare me? Yeah, I feel pretty confident it will. Okay, let's look at my fear of being kidnapped. Maybe I'm afraid someone's going to kidnap me, right? Okay, so what's the probability of that happen? Have I been kidnapped before? Have I been the victim of a home invasion? No. Do I know a lot of people in terms of my personal life that have been through it? Let's say no. Have I heard a lot of news stories about my specific area and home invasions? Let's say, again, no. But I do know that there are stories out there where this does happen, right? So it does happen. But what's the probability for me? So if I've never experienced it, don't really know anyone that close to me that has experienced this. So it's not like it's a situation that's close to home. Or let's say I haven't heard of that happening in my area, then the probability for me personally is low. Okay, so what's the severity of impact? Okay, I would say that one's pretty high if you're kidnapped, right? The impact for that can be very high, the consequences. Okay, now we won't go with relevant, like we can look at the relevance for that, but in a year, if you are kidnapped, then likely it's going to stay very, very impactful, right? So maybe it's low probability, high impact, high relevance, okay? Like now, what are the chances someone actually can break in? So let's imagine my home has video surveillance. Let's say our doors are locked. Let's say I have these different security measures that keep me safe, right? Okay, but let's imagine the worst case scenario still happens. What can I do? So let's say, for instance, I close my blinds because I'm afraid that person's going to be peering through my window, right? And looking for an opportunity to strike. So if I see that, or if the person's actually in my room, what can I do about it? Okay, I can scream for help, or I hear the person in my house, I can call the police, right? I have different things I can do to help me in that situation. Now, it's actually really important, very, very important, to actually write down the different things you can do, or really talk through it in your mind, the different things you can do should the worst case scenario happen. The reason that's really important is because when we feel stress or a high level of anxiety, it's because we've perceived that there's a stressor or a threat that's occurring or could occur that's beyond our ability to cope. So we need to go through the process of actually thinking, what can I do should the worst case scenario happen, so that it reduces some of that stress. If we know that should it happen, there are things we can do. There may not be perfect solutions, but we need to know that there are some things we can put into place. And you can apply this no matter what your anxiety inducing situation or fear is, right? So if it's an elevator, right? If I get stuck in an elevator, let's say that's my worst case scenario, I can press that help button. I can use my phone to call for help, right? In that situation, if we think about the number of people who are stuck in elevators, it's relatively low, right? Especially if you haven't had that experience in the past, despite riding the elevator, let's say 100 times in the span of 3 years, right? So then in that case, it's a low probability. And in terms of if you're stuck, how much of an impact would it be? Well, it's likely not going to be life-threatening. You'd be more so waiting for when emergency services arrives. For some it might be, but for most of us, based on our health state, it's not going to be life-threatening. So that would be pretty low impact. And then, in terms of how much would affect us in a year, in a week, a month, a year, that ranges from person to person. So, okay, so it's, again, it applies for any situation you're afraid of or anything that caused you anxiety. Just kind of going through those different dispute processes, rationalizations. So let's say, for example, you're 25. Even if you try to do the math on that, how many sleeps you've had, it's quite a few. So if you've had that many sleeps and no one's ever broken into your home, or you've never seen an entity in your bedroom or your house, then again, that speaks to how low the probability is. If you're afraid of elevators and you've ridden many elevators and nothing's ever happened in terms of getting stuck in there, low probability. If you're afraid of dogs and you've encountered, let's say, 5,000 dogs in your lifespan and none have ever attacked you, again, low probability. Or even let's say one has attacked you, 1 out of the 5,000 you've encountered, again, low probability. So looking at that probability is extremely important. And now and then the other big piece of it is thinking about, what can I do should this occur? So after you've practiced the distress tolerance and moved into the CBT, cognitive disputation, so disputing and reframing those thoughts, that's when you now want to go into actually exposing yourself, that gradual exposure to that anxiety-inducing situation. For some, naturally you're going to be exposed because this could be something that's a regular part of your life. Some you may actually have to seek out opportunities for exposure, but you want to do it very, very gradually and safely. So let's go back to my example of sleeping alone in the dark. So what that could look like in terms of gradual exposure, because you want to do it safely, you don't want to make your anxiety worse. I wouldn't immediately, open my blinds, sleep without a blanket, have my doors all open and the lights off. No, you wouldn't do all of that at once, right? So what you want to create is something we call a fear hierarchy. So from my hierarchy, let's say I have the things that I do to stay safe or to feel comfortable would be have someone sleep next to me, keep the lights on, open my bedroom door, close my closet door, close my bathroom door, close my blinds or curtains, have my blanket on, have background noise from the TV, for instance, right? So I've got 8 things. So out of those 8 things, which one causes me the most anxiety? Okay, let's say sleeping alone causes me the most anxiety. I'd put that at the top of my fear hierarchy. How much anxiety do I have from sleeping alone? Let's say I'm at a 10. So from 1 to 10, 10 is extreme anxiety. I can't even handle it. 1 is no anxiety. So let's say I'm at a 10 if I have to sleep alone. So I put that at the top. Then below that, let's say the next thing would be sleeping in the dark. So if I sleep in the dark, I would put that at a 9 for my level of anxiety. So that would be next. Then the next thing could be sleeping with my bedroom door open. So if I have to close it, that's gonna put me at an 8 on level of anxiety. And then from there, it could be sleeping with my closet door open. That would cause me a level 7 in anxiety. And then from there, sleeping with my bathroom door open, that causes a lot of anxiety. Let's say that's a 6. Sleeping with the blanket off of me is causing me a lot of anxiety. Let's put that at a 5. Sleeping with my curtains or blinds open, let's say that's a 4. Causes me a lot of anxiety to have it open. And just kind of working your way down, right? You get the picture, just kind of going from the thing that's most anxiety inducing to least anxiety inducing. And now for gradual exposure, we basically want to flip it. So if sleeping with background noise off is a thing that's going to cause me the least amount of distress, I want to do that first. So the first night, I'm going to practice keeping everything else in place, but I'm just going to turn off anything that gives me that background noise sense of security. So my TV or noise machine, right? And while I'm doing that, I'm going to practice my deep breathing or whatever distress tolerance technique I've chosen. So I'm going to practice my breathing, counting as I'm doing it, and I'm inducing that stress, that relaxation response to counter the stress response in my brain. So I'm teaching my brain I'm safe while I'm sleeping without any background noise. Now, with that, because it's the least scary thing on my fear hierarchy, it's probably not going to be too hard, right? But I'm going to practice that deep breathing, and then I'm going to do the CBT, cognitive disputation. So basically disputing the fearful thoughts that come up. So if any sort of anxiety inducing thoughts come up, I'm going to dispute it using the different steps we talked about. So thinking about probability, relevance, severity, what can I do should this occur, like worst case scenario occur, all of that, okay? Now let's say I practice this for 3 nights in a row. So the first night, you want to basically assess the next day how much anxiety you're experiencing. So let's say I did that, and my anxiety level on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being extreme anxiety, 1 being not at all, was at a 2 or even 1.5. I actually didn't feel very anxious from just having the noise, no background noise. So okay, let me do that for maybe 2 more nights. So I do it for 3 nights, and by the 3rd night, I'm at a 1. I feel no anxiety at all. Okay, so now I'm ready to move on to the next step. So let's say the next step for me would be sleeping with, let's say, the blanket off. Now, to sleep without the entire blanket may be too much of a leap, so we can break that down even more. So let's say normally my blanket, I sleep with it up to my neck, right? The first night of making this change, I'm still gonna have the noise, background noise off. Okay, so no background noise, but now I'm gonna drop my blanket maybe over to my chest. Okay, so rather than having it up to my neck, I'm gonna have it down to my chest. And I'm gonna do my deep breathing, disputing the anxious thoughts, right? I'm gonna keep doing that so I can get myself relaxed enough to go to bed. The next day, again, I'm going to scale my level of anxiety, right? And when it gets to the point where I don't feel any anxiety or very, very low intolerable amount of anxiety, then maybe I'll be ready to go to the next part of my fear hierarchy. So take as long as you need to for that, whether it takes a day, a week, however long it takes for you to get comfortable with that part before you go to the next part of exposure. So the next part of exposure then could be, now I'm going to sleep with the blanket down to my torso, right? Or down to my waist. And I'm gonna do that again, deep breathing, disputing the thoughts, work my way down to the blanket to my knees, work my way down to the blanket to my feet, work my way down to where I have no blanket at all, okay? Now, once I've mastered that, I feel completely comfortable doing this, I'm gonna move to the next part of my fear hierarchy. Then it would be sleeping with the blinds open. And again, I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna do the deep breathing to induce that relaxation response. I'm gonna dispute the thoughts, thinking about probability, severity, relevance, and also thinking again about, should the worst case scenario happen, what I can do to keep myself safe, to protect myself, okay? So you're basically like challenging these feared thoughts that come up. And you're gonna keep doing that, moving all the way through the fear hierarchy. So the next one I would do, once I'm completely comfortable sleeping with the blanket off, without any background noise, and sleeping with the blinds open, then I'm gonna go to the next. So let's say having my bathroom door open. I'm gonna do the same process again for as long as it takes, going over to sleeping with the closet door open. Then doing again, everything all over, like the whole process again. Now sleeping with my bedroom door closed. Right? So, and again, each time I go to each part of the hierarchy, I'm going to keep all the other things out, right? So I'm going to keep the measures that I've taken away out of the situation. So if I'm at the point of having my bedroom door closed when I sleep, still I won't have background noise. Still my blinds will be open. So I will sleep without covers, all of that. So I don't want to put any of those security measures back in. I want to have all of them gone in addition to the new step. And again, I'm practicing the distress tolerance. So for example, deep breathing, disputing the thoughts, right? Until I'm completely comfortable. So each morning, like each following morning, I'm scaling my level of anxiety. And once I feel completely confident and comfortable that I can tolerate that, then I'm going to move to the next step. So the next step could be sleeping with the lights off. And then I'm gonna get to the point where I can sleep with nobody next to me. So sleeping entirely alone. So I hope that's clear. Basically, you're going very, very, very gradual. That's how gradual exposure works. You wanna make sure you can tolerate like the distress, starting with the least anxiety inducing aspect of that fear. So once you can tolerate the distress and you can dispute the anxious thoughts, basically fight it with objective facts, that's how you just keep moving up through the fear hierarchy to basically eliminate the fear or reduce it to such a small amount that it's very tolerable and it's no longer impacting your functioning or quality of life. So you're just kind of going very slowly. I can't stress enough how important it is to be gradual, because if you don't go gradual, you can actually exacerbate that anxiety or that fear. So very, very slow and gradual. Now, you know, I will always suggest to do this with the support of a professional therapist, right? Because the therapist can help you in breaking down the fear in as small components as possible and helping you assess whether or not you're ready to go the next step. And they can really help you even in the cognitive disputation, so that this thought reframing process, far better than you can on your own. But, you know, the reason that this channel exists is because some people are not able to access therapy, whether it's because of location or cost or just anxiety about seeing someone, right? So this is for if you don't have that option, or you know, seeing a therapist for this is very difficult for you to do. That's why, you know, I got this video going, so that it's something you can practice on your own. But definitely having the support of a therapist and doing this is always better than doing it on your own. Now, you can apply this to any phobia or anxiety-based situation, right? So, for example, let's say the fear is the elevator, right? You want to break it down. So you're not going to ride the elevator the first time you begin gradual exposure. You're going to take steps. So the first step may be even just looking at the elevator and thinking about going on it, right? So you're like at the opposite end of the hallway. Let's say you're in a building and you're just looking at it. And you're going to do that by, you know, deep breathing as you're looking at it, because you're picturing yourself going to it. You're deep breathing. You know, you're disputing the anxious thoughts. You keep doing that till looking at the elevator, thinking about riding it, no longer is fearful. Then the next step could be maybe I take 3 steps towards the elevator the next time, and I do again the same process: deep breathing, disputing the anxious thoughts, and I just keep getting closer and closer to the elevator. Then one day I get to the point where I press the button. But again, I'm not getting the elevator, right? When I feel comfortable in, you know, that I no longer have anxiety, and even just pressing the button, picturing myself riding it, then the next time perhaps I can go into the elevator, okay? Again, you're just gonna go in and come out. You're not actually taking it to another floor yet. When I feel confident and comfortable with that, then again, maybe then I can actually ride it down to another floor, up to another floor. So it's very, very, very gradual, okay? So I hope that's clear, guys. If you have any questions, please post them below, because you know, I'd be happy to answer, and I really want to make sure if you guys are practicing this, that you're doing this safely, comfortably, effectively. So please post any questions you have before you begin, or if you start the process and you have any questions, please post it, and I'm going to do my very best to get back to you ASAP. But if you practice this, we call it systematic desensitization. It is extremely effective. There's a lot of research that supports it in the elimination or reduction of anxiety and specific phobias. So I hope that's clear, guys. You know, you just kind of have to tailor it to your specific situation, right? You know, again, whether it's riding through rush hour traffic, and if it's rush hour traffic, something I have to say about that: if you're practicing deep breathing with rush hour traffic, just be mindful of how long you do it for, because for some, deep breathing can actually make them very sleepy. Last thing we want you to do is to do that while you're operating a vehicle, right, where you're getting sleepy. So you can do it till you're relaxed but not sleepy, or you can do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or mindfulness in threes, where you're using your senses to ground you in the moment to get through that period of being in the rush hour traffic rather than deep breathing. So basically, there's tons of things out there, and I'll make another video as well about different distress tolerance and grounding techniques. But basically just tailor this to your specific situation, okay? So what we did is a combination of distress tolerance, so learning how to tolerate that anxiety in an anxiety-inducing situation or next to a phobia, and followed by CBT, cognitive disputation, so disputing the fearful, anxious thoughts, right? And then we're implementing it within gradual exposure to that anxiety-inducing situation or the phobia. So, guys, if you have any questions, again, please ask. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, please let me know by hitting the thumbs up icon to like it. Share with anyone you know who may be experiencing this. Also, if you have any suggestions for topics, anything mental health related you want to know about, please let me know. Post it below, and you may find your topic could have its own dedicated video, or you may find it in an Ask Nakasha video, where basically I answer all of your mental health based questions in a video, whether it's pre-recorded or live. Okay guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you at the next video.